Hello, welcome to this Uncertain Kingdom Q&A for one of our fantastic films called Isaac and the Ram. I'm here with practically a full house of the filmmaking team and the cast. We're missing one of the producers, but do you guys want to just sort of introduce yourselves, and then we can move on about to the film itself? Jason, go for it.
Okay, cool. Hi, I'm Jason Bradbury, the director of the film.
Hi, I'm Callum Myatt. I play Isaac in the film.
Hi, my name is Pirie. I'm one of the other actors playing the Ram.
My name's Ed, and I'm the screenwriter.
And I'm Yaw Basoah, one of the producers. The other producer, Brett, can't join us on the call, but he's here in spirit.
So Isaac and the Ram is a story about a nightclub bouncer and former skinhead who reluctantly offers a homeless gay teenager a place to stay for the night. Ed and Jason, can you tell me a little bit about the genesis of the story and the relevance of it?
Jason and I, we met at a event for the BFI Network and BAFTA crew, and we also met Brett through that, and also I sat next to Yaw at the BAFTA, I think, and Jason and I basically the first things we were talking about the networking was the stuff we were interested in, and also it turns out we were angry about at the time, and we were both quite concerned and angry about the statistics around disproportionate number of LGBTQ youth, young people who are homeless, and also we talked about the sort of apparent rise of hate crime post-referendum result. And those sort of ideas, those two concerns, ultimately, after lots of different permutations, filtered down into Isaac and Hank, and we'd wanted to look at we wanted the characters to be two people who were different, and wanted to try and make them as complicated as possible so that they were more than one thing. So Isaac sort of isn't just a victim in the situation, he fights back, but all his problems aren't sort of totally solved, and Hank isn't just the violence, but on the other hand, he isn't just a person who saved the day as well. They don't have totally full answers. We wanted to try and address the complicated issues around the things we wanted to explore. And there was other personal elements. I have had friends who have been estranged from their family because of their sexuality, and sort of different situations in my past as well, where I'd been in difficult situations with people who were sort of frightening or had more power than I did. And that sort of, we developed a sort of quite a longer script that had with exterior elements as well. And those, we played around with the balancing of who we follow throughout the story between the two characters, and then we eventually cut the exteriors, and we worked things with Jessica Jones, the script editor, and then we really zeroed in on Isaac's perspective and following him through the story and meeting Hank.
I'll mute myself. I think it's kind of, I guess, like rare when you meet people and you're like instantly kind of excited about the collaboration, and I think both Ed and I were so kind of just, it really synced up with what we wanted to explore, and I think that, like, for me, when the film kind of started to kind of switch perspectives to kind of be told by from more of like Isaac's perspective, I think at the time I'd kind of started to kind of get involved with LGBTQ homelessness a little more, and I'd met an amazing charity called the Outside Project, who are doing great work, and especially Carla, the founder. We'd kind of had a few conversations, and I think I really wanted to tell a story that kind of added a human kind of element to the kind of statistics, I guess, because I think sometimes statistics can be quite difficult to engage with for people, and you know, there are some like very worrying statistics. That's I think the current ones are that almost 1 in 5 LGBT people have faced homelessness, which is obviously so disproportionate, and so I think that's really where the story kind of came from, you know. And so then we kind of started, once we kind of, I guess, had the characters, we started to think about how we would kind of bring it to life. And one of the things that we were aware of was how homelessness affects queer people of color even more disproportionately. And so we really wanted to kind of have that element represented, and to create a film that explored the ideas and made and was kind of truly authentic. You know, I think queer film has a kind of tendency to center narratives that are kind of white, gay, male, kind of middle class stories, and I think that that's something that we wanted to kind of actively resist and kind of question, you know, at every turn, question our own internal biases, and just make sure that we were doing everything we could to kind of tell an authentic story. And then that kind of led us to kind of, once we started the kind of casting process, you know, I really wanted to do street casting, and we met an amazing casting director, Claire Bleasdale, who and at the time the story was set where it's kind of still set up north, kind of on the outskirts of Manchester, and so we did we did some casting sessions up there, which is actually how when we first met Callum. And yeah, I mean, the workshops that Claire put together, and the kind of the breadth of kind of perspectives and people that we saw was just astounding. I think we were all really blown away by everyone, and everyone kind of brought different things, but I think we all kind of, you know, we all really felt that kind of Callum brought something to the role that was really special. Yeah, I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit about the workshop element, I guess?
Yeah, it was just an amazing experience, because I was down in Dorset with my nan and granddad, and then I got the call saying there was an audition for Isaac and the Ram in Manchester. I was like, wow, all right, so I've got to go for this one. And then I got there, and the level of acting abilities from the other people there was just amazing. It was outstanding. So we done the workshop. I think it was about 45 minutes long. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then after that was all done, it was a while from when we got the next call to say there was more auditions. So I thought that was it. I didn't think I had the role. And then I got an email saying that there was one more audition, and that was down in London. And then there was 2 other actors who were amazing people to work with and meet. And then that was the final audition. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the whole process. And again, thank you everyone for having me involved in it. I appreciate it so much.
And I mean, the relationship between the 2 characters, Hank and Isaac, is so intense, and there's such a huge range of emotions that you guys go through in 15 minutes. Did you, when was it that you and Ian first met? Did you do a read before the rehearsals started, or was it just in rehearsals?
Yeah, no, I met him on the final audition
Right.
with the two other actors who were going for the role.
So
And
Ian was cast, and you did a sort of chemistry read.
Yeah, that was it. And we had it was kind of like the fighting scene, and he had to grab my neck and scream in my face.
Oh.
So it's quite intense. I enjoyed it a lot. I really enjoyed that. Yeah. No, it worked well. Obviously, meeting Ian, I felt like we had a good chemistry bond, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And so the film was originally going to be shot up in Manchester, but ended up being shot down in London. But I know that it was a very, very tight set. You were in a very sort of like closed location. Can you tell us a bit about the creative decisions from the script point of view, but also when you were actually shooting it, that had to be made because of those restrictions?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're making a short film, I think you're kind of always faced. Well, I think any film actually. I think just filmmaking in general is always, there's always a compromise somewhere. I think, and I think when we were kind of approaching it, the most important thing for me was to like, how can we facilitate the most space for Callum and Ian to kind of to explore these characters, and for us not to have some space and time to do things. And we I think rehearsal was a really key part of that. I remember I think we had 2 full days, and which is quite long considering that like the shoot was only 2 days. So and I think Ian, I remember you saying that it was quite unusual to maybe have that for a short, but it was really, really useful.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's really good to have the time given, rather being on set when you're actually having a wee rehearsal to explore the characters, which was saves a lot of time for the producers, the whole production. That you know exactly what you're going to be doing, and the relationship that we built over those 2 days. Because I'd never met Callum before until the audition process. Which he was fantastic. He was just so audition. He really was. I think everybody went, that's the one, But to have that 2 days rehearsal process and to have be given the ability to be able to try lots and lots of different things out, get to know the director, get to know the writer, the producer, and those 2 days for a short film, for any independent film, really a feature or whatever, it's very, very unusual. Even when you're doing independent features, sort of low budget, under £1 million, you never meet the director until you arrive on set. So I think, it would be fantastic for any short film or for any feature if you could have a couple of days beforehand just to rehearse some of the, especially if the scene's so intense as ours were, Yeah, it was good.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I think there's this real like difference of like process where I think, and quite rightly, like different processes work for different filmmakers, but and I think there's always a worry with rehearsal that you're going to like get rid of the spontaneity of the performances. But I think like it's almost the wrong way to look at rehearsal. It is for me at least, where actually what you're doing in rehearsal is you're kind of freeing yourself up to be more spontaneous and to allow those connections, because like you have a deeper understanding of the material, and that you have that relationship kind of explored already.
Yeah, and I mean, you're it's trust that you're building. Trust amongst the whole crew and the cast, and that's essential and vital. But so tell me a bit more about the sort of the creative process and working with your HODs, a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think with the film, like along with kind of authenticity being a kind of a really important thing for us, and for me, that possibly the most important thing was kind of capturing this visceral element, and like really feeling the emotions from the character's perspective. And you know, I really kind of pushed myself with this film, and really kind of questioned myself when I wanted to do something. I was like, wait, why do I want to do that? Let's maybe do let's explore the opposite, as like a way to kind of just like make sure you're not making choices that are just kind of easy or comfortable. And I think probably the DP Adam Scarf was like kind of integral in kind of pushing me out of my comfort zone, and I think the conversations that we had kind of really informed that approach, and like allowing space and time. Like we shot like fewer setups and fewer camera setups to allow more time and kind of more evolving masters and things like that, which I found really useful, a really kind of useful approach, and something that I'd always talked about but kind of maybe didn't do in my films. So and then I think that the next, I'm also like really obsessed with sound, and I think that's a place where I kind of feel that you can really push the like visceral elements and really feel the emotions. And so yeah, kind of working with the composer Patrick Johnson and the supervising sound editor Tom Williams, like we've worked together before, and I really feel like with this film there was a kind of synergy there that between kind of, I guess, all the departments, you know, including like art department and costume and the edit. Like for me, it was possibly like the closest that I've got so far to kind of like where I want to be, if that makes sense. Yeah, I guess.
And how just sort of just going back to Yaw, how did you meet Jason and Ed and Brett as well, the other producer?
The BAFTAs, really. I sat next to Ed at the BAFTAs, and then I went to the following year with Jason, and they're just two great filmmakers that I've been tracking for a while, and it's really good to start conversations and then to see where that would lead. And Brett, it was really cool just to work with another producer. I don't tend to on my stuff, and it's something that I've always wanted to do. It's nice to be able to look at how you're going to make a film, and then also look at how you can collaborate with someone to share the load, see what your strengths are, what someone else's strengths are, and really improve and enhance the total. So yeah, that's kind of how we all got together. I think like Ed sent through us an early version of their idea to me, and I stayed in touch about how they're starting to develop that. And a few months down the line, they came back with an actual script and were ready to go with it. And it was quite an interesting process with The Uncertain Kingdom, because we just knew that the script was it was fantastic and ready to go. There wasn't huge amounts of development that needed to be done with it.
No, it was
but
very much
yeah,
there
we go. But then there were some financial constraints given the amount of money on offer with the scheme, and Ed actually made a virtue of those constraints and changed the screenplay. And again, like Jason really embraced that in the way he re-envisaged the whole thing. And in the first place, the film wasn't going to just take place in the flat for the whole film. There were other scenes dotted around that tied up the narrative. But I think when we got the revamped scripts, we just thought everything was there. The core relationship and their journeys were so well covered in the screenplay. We were just really confident to go with it. So yeah, really cool development process.
And Ed, the way you dealt with those constraints was just genius. You made it feel even more intense and sort of like unsettling and terrifying, because it's just all set in this one location. And how you pulled that off. I think it was like, I mean, the draft that we saw was certainly the first draft of the changes. There was probably other ones before that, but yeah, I mean, that you were confronted with basically having to cut a lot of your scenes, weren't you?
Yeah, and I think that was obviously, like, part of you thinks, oh no, it's my baby, blah, 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 blah. But I think I wanted to do with this short, and so the next short that I haven't done a huge amount of, was to work with a team that I really trusted and to learn as much as I could. And so it was a brilliant chance for me to have to do that under pressure and under sort of a time constraint. And everyone on the team fed into that. It was so helpful, and in particular Jessica Jones, the script editor. We sat down, and she was a really great sounding board, and I wanted to, it helped. I think it was like Yaw said, it was trying to make it a virtue of taking it to the next draft. So it helped me, in my head at least, to think about it as a sort of emotional thriller, and to try and thread that through to make sure it felt like it was tense and unfurled and you weren't sure who had what motivations. But I felt very confident at that time, to having worked with the team for a while and having gestated with the story, to trust to give it over to them, and to give it and then over to Ian and Callum, who were so generous with their time and energy. And so it was just, I got to be the annoying writer on set, getting in the way. But it was great for me, because I got to get to watch these guys work. So that was a really great privilege for me.
Thank you, Ed. We've got a question in. Jason, this is probably one for you. Somebody asking just to sort of expand a little more on the sound and the mix, and how that all felt like an additional character, the third character in the film. Can you talk a little bit more about that and your work with your composer?
Yeah, so I mean, Patrick Johnson, I mentioned, and also Tom Williams, who did who kind of supervised the sound overall. We've worked together before, and actually with both of those departments now, I start the process before we shoot. So kind of as soon as there's a script, I'm sharing it with them. And so, for example, with Patrick, he he wrote the music basically before seeing the film. And actually what I find that it allows me to do is to kind of use that music to try and get myself to a place where I'm then kind of channeling that into the performances and the other kind of choices that I make. Like, you know, I think we with Ian and Callum, like, we spoke a lot about kind of the characters' backgrounds, and their kind of like the different character to like the kind of opposing characters they are, but then this there is a shared connection there, you know, between them, and that I think does give that element of kind of hope, I guess. And that's something that Patrick and I talked about. And in the score, for example, kind of Isaac has this kind of like slightly softer kind of electronic sound, and Hank has this very kind of intense kind of bass string sound. And actually at the end of the film, they're kind of brought together. It's these kind of like really subliminal things. And actually I think one of the things that I love the most, and actually one of the things that I'm saddest about it not being seen in the cinema, is the night terror scene. Ian, actually, I don't think we've spoken about this, but I'd love to know, because do you remember when we were doing that scene, we kind of didn't really know what we were doing on the day, in terms of just like it being such an abstract thing to happen, and you know, like the script that goes in, it is so beautifully written, but it's still a really hard thing to kind of grasp. And I think, well, I hope that with the sound in that section, like really kind of brings it together. but I'd love to, yeah, maybe, do you remember when we did that? The
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I mean, it was quite a hard thing to get right, if I remember,
Mm-hmm.
remember rightly. My daughter used to suffer from night terrors when she was very young, and I think generally, well, most people that I know have had night terrors are quite young, and here we've got an older gentleman with obviously some problems, who's having night terrors for some sort of reason. And for me, it kind of, because he's old and because he's visceral and because he's unhinged, perhaps, when the night terror, when we did that scene, it was almost as though he reverted back to being sort of like a childlike state. And you kind of really felt how much, a lot of sympathy for him, you know. And there was a lot of things in this film that was one of the reasons that I did it when I read the script. It was such a beautiful script. And I'm always wanting to work with new up-and-coming directors and writers and producers. And what drew me especially to this script is, A, I used to be a part-time bouncer for about 12 years. And B, my son's gay, and he is heavily involved in the LGBT rallies and this, that, and the other. And really, he's 25. And it just kind of, for me anyway, had a lot of resonance. The script brought a lot of resonance to something that, although I'm maybe known for playing some brutal characters in some of the movies and stuff that I've done, I really thought that this character of Hank had a real sympathetic misunderstanding about him that you only kind of get maybe 10 minutes into the piece, you know. Before that, you're not really sure what Hank is up to with this young gay guy coming to his house and having a shower and all that sort of thing. Yeah, there was lots of things in this script, including the night terrors, as I say, my daughter had as well, that I was drawn to and why I wanted to do it, you know.
I think that what's so, one of the things that I love about the film is that it ends on this note with both characters, where this night has meant so much for them, has been so significant for them. And there's this beautiful scene at the end where Callum's character Isaac is left in the flat by himself, and the light's coming in through the window, and you can see this calm sort of settles on him momentarily, but you're left knowing that hopefully that calm will come to him more. And similarly with Hank's character, there's a shift there, and I suppose that there's this sort of shared vulnerability and fragility between them. So for what is an incredibly intense and powerful and quite hard at times to watch film, the ending is, there's such hope there and such positivity, which is a wonderful way to end it.
I think that's something that we really wanted to capture as a team, and something that we always spoke about, is that, you know, I think it's important to kind of to look at characters that are complex and layered, and, you know, like not necessarily making the right actions, and maybe they've made some terrible decisions, but they are still, that, you know, like we are still human, and you know, and I think I'm really interested, especially, and I think we're all really interested in exploring what that means, to, because I think if you can kind of understand that, then you can start to understand, like you increase the empathy that we have in the world. And I think that's what we really need at the moment, is more empathy, and being able to see the world through other people's eyes. That's
like a beautiful way to end this conversation, I think. Just one more thing, Jason. You talked about some of the organisations that you worked with when you were doing research into the film. Obviously, COVID-19 has had a dramatic and sort of horrific effect on a number of people's lives, but specifically on people that are homeless. Ed, I know that you were telling Jason about an unbelievable sort of quote that the government had said.
Yeah, there was some kind of they sort of phrased advice in the sense that homeless people should consider moving back in with friends and family. And I mean, it's this level of detachment from people's lived experience that I find is one of the many galling things about the situation that we're in and the people who are supposed to be in charge. And so that sort of threw things into stark relief. And I had a friend who stayed with us because they lost their accommodation just before lockdown. And it's one of those things, especially living in a city with housing as expensive as it is. It's something that lots of people aren't very far away from. But also there are so many people and kinds of people that are hugely disproportionately affected. So I think it's something that you hope that with the way that it was seemed to be possible for people who without accommodation in London to be taken into hotels and given somewhere to stay, that's one of those things that people had said was never going to be possible before, but suddenly it was. So hopefully we can remember these things and also make sure that help is targeted to people who have specific needs or reasons why they might not get what they need from services in the government.
I would also just like to say that if anyone has been affected by any of the issues or does want to know more, the Outside Project is a really great place to start and just a great organization to kind of follow what they're doing. And I would encourage everyone to go and follow them on Instagram and on Twitter, just to just be aware of these things. Just so check them out.
Well,
just to quickly add that on our link tree, which you can find on Jason's Twitter, his Instagram, mine, I think all the teams, and there's a link there. You can get directly to quite a few different organisations, so that's worth following as well. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Yaw.
Thank you guys. Have a great night, and thank you to everyone that's been watching. Okay, take care.
Cheers, guys. Enjoy the film.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.